In the previous tutorial video, we talked about how to create the structure for this particular layout that we want to create in Dreamweaver with CSS and HTML5. So again, what we did was we worked from the top down and left to right. So as we're looking at this, we have a wrapper that's going to be 960 and auto left and right margins so that it sits in the middle. Then we are going to have, this is the header right here, and it's actually going to be invisible, but what it's going to do is it's going to contain the div called logo and the nav tag. And so this is just going to be like float left at 250 pixels, float right at like 550 pixels, whatever numbers make sense for your website. And then this slider tag is going to clear both because it'll have floated elements up above, both on the left and the right. So it should clear both, but shouldn't have to do a width because it should be the full width of the parent tag, which is the wrapper, which is 960 pixels. So then we have a section tag here with an ID of 3 boxes because it is a section that contains multiple things, and therefore it is called 3 boxes because that's the ID that I gave it so that I understand what this particular section is doing or what it contains. And then inside of that we have 3 boxes. Each of them have a unique ID because they're each going to do 3 different things. This is going to be a product, this is going to be a service, and this is going to be an event. I might want to make this one blue, pink, and yellow. That'd be hideous, but go with me on this. So if I want to style them uniquely, then they need to have IDs. But everything else, the width of it and the fact that they are all going to float left and they're all going to have a 20 pixel margin on the left, those common rules that you're going to have for all 3 of them, it's going to be a better idea to make a class called homebox where you put all of those common rules in that one particular rule that applies to all 3, and then you use the IDs to do the specific styling that you want. Then we have a testimonial section that will clear both so that it clears all those floated elements. And then we have our footer tag underneath. So let's go ahead and see how we've built this structure. Please review the tutorial video that we went over creating this structure. But as you can see, these boxes each have their own unique ID, but they also have a class of homebox. Then we have up here, we have an div with an ID of slider. We have a section around the boxes with an ID of 3 boxes, testimonial ID div, and then a footer, a header around the logo and the nav, and then the wrapper around all of it. So let's go ahead and start styling it. I'm going to go to the design area. We don't really have anything going on. I've already linked my CSS, and this is all saved and in a site defined, or define the site in Dreamweaver. So let's go ahead and start. We're going to start with the wrapper because it's the easiest, and I'm going to make this yellow and eventually take that out. So I made sure I'm on all, and I'll uncheck show set so that I can make sure I can see everything. And I just want to do a basic hex color for this so I can see it. And then I want to change this to pixels of 960. That's just the common size. So if you want to do 1200, that's a common size as well. Or 800 if you don't really have a lot of content, but 960 is probably the most accepted size. 1200 is getting more popular as devices get bigger, retina displays, etc. So 960 works for me here, and then I'm going to go to the pixel on the margin left and choose auto. Click pixel and choose auto on the right. So it's going to make it sit in the center. Okay, so that's all I want to do for my wrapper right now. I can add padding and margins later, but we're just creating the structure and the layout using code and CSS for these tutorial videos. We'll leave all the pretty and the styling and the spacing and the alignment to you on your own. Okay, so we have the logo that we want to float to the left and the nav that we want to float to the right. So we'll go ahead and do, and it's probably a good idea to see what's happening in the code right here. So we have the header that surrounds the ID of logo and the nav. So let's just go ahead and click in here and type #logo. And we're going to make that about 250. Make it whatever works for your particular website. And you can barely see that it happens, so I like to, again, throw garish colors in there. And I'm going to go back to layout and float it on the left. Okay, so now I could add some margins to push it away from it, but again, we're just trying to do the basics to make it all sit right, and then we can do that later. So now we want to work on the nav. So I don't like to have complicated rules like this, but you could keep that if you wanted to, and it's a good idea to always click on what you're about to style so it does that for you. For me, I just want to say the nav. should have a background of blue. Okay. And I need to tell it because it looks like it's floating to the right, but it's actually floating underneath the logo tag. So we're going to go back to layout and we're going to float to the right. And notice that it automatically makes it really squashed to fit the text that's in there. So I'm going to come in here and force it to be 550. So again, do whatever you think looks best. Okay. So the slider tag has slid underneath it. So I'm going to go ahead and do hashtag slider. And I'm using hashtag because, again, we're working with an ID. And we can't just do div because we've used divs in a lot of different places. And so it would affect all of those divs. So the ID allows us to say this particular one, this particular div, because it has the unique name of ID, we're saying you specifically should do this thing. So because it has floated elements on the left and the right, we're going to choose to clear both. And we actually don't need to do anything else with that because we can add our slider in there later, and you probably don't want to have any padding or margins for that. Okay, so then we have all these different home boxes. We have the product home box, the service home box, and the event home box. And then it's all in this section with an ID of 3 boxes. So I'm going to hit plus and do hashtag 3 boxes. And you're going to see, I'm going to make this pink so you can see what happens. We're going to do kind of a deep pink purple. So as you can see, it's containing all of those. So now we want to style all the home boxes and we want to make it a class. So I've indicated class here. And remember, hashtag means ID and period means class. So I'm going to type period home box. Also be aware that IDs and classes cannot start with digits or hyphens. So don't call this like 3 home box. Actually, this can work with digits, but for some reason class can't. So, well, actually, I don't even know if that's true. You might need to look that up, but it's working here. So, I don't know. Now I'm going to panic and do boxes 3. So it will not apply until you come in here and do boxes 3. Okay, that's weird. All right, so just don't start with a digit ever, I guess. I don't even know if that's official. I know it works. I know it's specifically for classes, but now I'm like second guessing myself. So, all right, so back to class of home box. We want to make all of these 250 pixels. So I'm going to come in here and do 250, and you can kind of see that it gets to be the right size. And I want them all to float left. So now it's like, what the heck happened with this? Well, they all floated, and when you float everything in another container, then it doesn't seem like anything's in that container. It doesn't recognize it. So that actual container is there. It just thinks that there's nothing in it, so it's not showing it. So it's kind of collapsed. And we can fix that in a second. For right now, for the home box, let's go ahead and change this to a lighter shade of pink so that we can see it. And then we have testimonials that's floating up underneath there. So I'm going to mess with all the margins and padding in a second. So I just want to get all of these. Oops, cancel. Wrong one. So hashtag testimonial. And I'm going to make this one a background of, let's just do another, maybe a deeper blue. Okay. And again, it's floating underneath, so we need to clear both. So that looks pretty good. And I'm probably going to add some padding in there. And I probably want to, there's nothing else called testimonials, so I do want this one to be centered so that the text can be whatever testimonial I put in there is going to be centered. All right, so the footer looks pretty good. We don't even really have a rule, but we can add one in there if we want to. Remember, this is just a tag. It's not a class or an ID, so it can just be footer. No hashtag or period needed. And just for consistency, we'll make that rule because eventually we'll probably want to do something. I just changed the font color. That's not what I meant to do. So I'm going to come in here and change this to orange. Okay. So let's mess with these home boxes again a little bit. So I like to put some padding in all of these. So let's put like 10. And then maybe on the left, we want a little bit of a margin. 18, maybe 35. Maybe 35 is too much. That's not bad. So that's making it all sit. Now it's kind of like touching, so this might not work. Yeah, it does work. Cool. So I'm going to do this and make that 20. And then I try to do that and make it 20 because I don't like things to touch. So the question is, right now it's getting its color from the wrapper. You can see that it's yellow. And if we come in here to the slider, we can make this slider, let's just do a hideous gray so that we can see it. So it's getting that color from the wrapper, and if we like that, fantastic. If we don't, then in order to bring the 3 boxes, this section back, it's weird because what you have to do is you have to make it percentage 100%, not 1100. I don't know why this is doing this lately, where it like types things, and see how it didn't change anything. But now it still has a background color of a deep purple. It's 100%, and weirdly enough, we actually have to say float left. So now you can see that. So it's weird. It's like you got to float the container and float everything it contains in order to see the container. But that's only if you want to see the container. If you were fine with it being yellow or whatever your wrapper color is, then you wouldn't have to do any of that. You just needed that so that all these 3 things can be in one container, and then we can clear that container, whatever. So that's the basics. I'm going to click on the CSS, the layout. The rest of it is just, you know, padding, margin, taking these hideous colors out. But your structure is good for right now. So I'll go ahead and click the CSS and go to design and collapse all this, not design, code, and go ahead and pause it, and you can look at all of these different rules and create them on your own. So I'll scroll down here and show you the rest of it. Okay, so hopefully that helps you to create a little bit more of a unique layout, and then start thinking about, for your particular design, you might not have what I have here. So now start thinking about, what if you wanted things to look one way, how would you do that? And using both the ID and the class and regular tags. So you usually want to start with a regular tag if you have one that's going to work. Then you want to use a class if multiple things are going to use the same styles. And then if it's going to be a unique thing that you only want to style that one thing in a certain way, then you would use an ID. So for instance, if I wanted to come here and do the product, so notice that it's pink right now because the home box for all 3, that class said it should be pink, 250, and float left. But now specifically for the product, I want to make that a teal color. So, or whatever, a mint green color. So as you can see, now the product is going to be more specific. The ID is the most specific, and this is all about specificity with these rules. It's going to take the generic stuff first, then your tags, then your classes, and last it's going to do your IDs. So an ID is always going to trump a class, and a class is always going to trump just like a regular tag. Okay. All right. So now I can come in here and say hashtag service should be blue and hashtag an event should be red, and then those will be able to be styled uniquely, but they're still all being controlled with this home box. So if I feel they need to be wider or less wide or less padding or add more margins, etc., I can do it to all 3 of them by just changing this one particular rule.